Alright YouTubers, we've got a different one for you today. So usually it's the '09 Silverado, but my buddy Trent is wanting to do a lift on his Jeep. So it's a 2017 Sport Wrangler 4-door. We started out already, we put new tires on it, new rims. These are, I gotta look, I don't remember off the top of my head now. 285 70s on 17-inch rims. This is a stock suspension right now, so they fit perfect. They don't rub at all. So if you're looking at, maybe you just want to do tires and rims and nothing else, no suspension, this is what it looks like on the stock suspension. But the 285 70s will totally fit on the 17-inch rim. So if that's something you want to do, there you go. We already tried it out, crossing our fingers initially, hoping that there would be no rub, and there wasn't. But now what we're going to do today is we're actually going to lift it up 2.5 inches. So what we have is we've got a rough country suspension system. Never put one of these on before, so hopefully everything goes well. The instructions are all online. So the QR code it comes with, scan the QR code. And the first thing it says, we're going to start on the front end, lift it up, and we're going to get into it. But pretty straightforward. I think this kit right here was like $213, I think $213. Trent, what were the tires and rims?
Just under 2,000.
All right, so just under 2,000 for those. And remind me again where you got this tires and rims?
Extreme Terrain.
Extreme Terrain. Okay, and I think actually the lift came from Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. So, but it's a rough country suspension, so we'll get into it. And we'll show you maybe some things we run into. Hopefully it's super easy, we don't have any issues, but just in case, we'll definitely show you any fixes we find to problems. So sit tight and we'll get into it. Alright, so here we are underneath. We've got the tire off, it's lifted. Now the next step is to remove this bolt right here. We're going to replace this. And then over here on the other side on the shock, we're going to go ahead and unhook the shock. So that's basically step 1 and 2. Directions say 18 mil is the size on that. Swing this camera around here. You guys get another look at it there. Alright, so next up we've got that sway bar bolts undone, the lower shock bolts out, retaining those for future use. Now we've got our brake line holder. We're going to take that off, 10 mil bolt there. And then we're going to remove our coil and go from there. Alright, so one of the things we ran into when we were doing this is getting this coil back on, and the directions didn't call for any type of coil compressor or whatever. So what we did instead is the directions tell you to push down on this here, and that's what we did. But I was trying to do it by myself, and because I mean you got 2.5 inch spacer here, so getting that, it just doesn't want to go the way it is. So what we did is Trent put his foot here, pushed down on the brake rotor, that brought down the axle, and it slid right on. But if you're trying to do this by yourself, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You might want to have somebody just to push down on that for you. But once he pushed down on it, it slid right back in, so there was no need for anything specialized to do this. So we didn't need to get any ring compressors or anything else from AutoZone on their rental program. But when you get into this, that's something that you're going to run into for sure. So, all right, so here we are on this stage. We got the front done. Not a super difficult job, not too bad. Back here, about the same. I mean, like any lift kit, well, any type of lift kit like this, we're really just talking about spacers. So you're just trying to get those spacers in between so that everything kind of lines up and you get that good lift. The only problem we ran into is fuel lines. The instructions say to lower the fuel lines. The problem with that is with the hard fuel lines that they have, we couldn't figure out a way necessarily without bending the fuel lines to get it to actually extend out. So I don't know how many other people are having that same issue, but without flexible lines, I don't really know what to do there. On the back end here, it's the same thing. All we're going to do is we're going to hook our fuel line. If you want to come over here, Trent. We're going to unhook our I'm sorry, I keep saying fuel line, brake line. We're going to hook this brake line. You can see it's this hard line here, so it's not flexible like down here. So that's what we're having issues with. You practically have to bend it to get it to do what the lift kit wants you to do. We're going to unhook down here. We're going to put our spacer in back here behind this bump stop where that coil is. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Then we're just going to lift it and back up with the jack, and we'll be where we're at. And then we'll recap at the end, kind of talk through a couple things. But generally speaking, the whole job's been done with 2 sockets, which we broke one of them in the process, but that's okay. We'll go buy another one. So we'll get this on there, and if you just follow the instructions, I don't need to give you a step-by-step, play-by-play on this. Just follow the instructions, and it's pretty straightforward. All right, so we're at a kind of a stopping point. Basically what's happening here is we cannot get this axle low enough to remove that rear coil. And so what we're thinking is, with the brake line removed, the shock's been removed, and with Trent putting his body weight onto this rotor, it's still not dropping. I'm thinking right now, we take this, I don't know, sway bar, control arm, idler arm, whatever it is, this piece, this linkage, and disconnect it, and that may be the missing link. That may cause it to drop further. But I can tell you right now, just removing the shock alone, which is what the directions said, unless I'm missing something, which I could, I'm not trying to throw rough country under the bus or anything, that's not enough clearance to get that coil out. So what we're going to try next, we're going to try to remove this and see where we're at. Alright, so we did manage to get the coil off, and the key to this, although it's not in the instructions, is you got to take off this linkage here. We took it off on the bottom. That was the easiest way to do it. Super hard to get a wrench on the back side here, but down lower, a lot easier to do so. So when you guys do this, definitely loosen that, because I don't know how you're going to get this axle to drop low enough to yank the coil without doing it. So when we put it on here, we're definitely going to be in a tight spot. Also, the e-brake was on, and that was, oddly enough, keeping this from dropping down all the way as well. So a couple tips there, you know, definitely loosen this up or remove the bolt. Plus, take your e-brake off. Make sure you got your tires chalked and whatnot, but take that e-brake off. And once Trent stepped on this, definitely dropped low enough where I could take off the or the coil, no problem. One thing we're probably going to do on this is we're going to go ahead and drop this brake line down, because this one actually has the clearance to be able to pull it off, whereas the front ones, as I said earlier, not so much. So we'll probably drop this brake line down, and that's pretty much it for the most part. There's nothing too overly complicated. The back side is just a couple bolts, and really when you get underneath here, it's not too bad. It's kind of a weird setup with getting the spacer on there, but if you follow the directions, at least for rough country, it's not bad. Get her tightened down in there, we'll get the coil back on, and we'll wrap up the video basically with showing you where we're at the end of the project. Alright, so come to the conclusion of the video. Big shout out to Trent Miller for giving us the opportunity to do this Jeep. He turned several wrenches, so he did a lot of it with some coaching, but this thing is freaking awesome. Just look it over. I mean, the 2.5-inch lift versus what we started with as a stock Jeep originally. And I know too, like, hey, you guys didn't see the video or didn't see the pictures of it with the stock rims and tires, but from that point a couple weeks ago to this right here, this is what we're talking about. I mean, the 2.5-inch lift with these tires is awesome. Not a terribly difficult job. I will say some issues with spare parts, some other things that we didn't get into. There's one bracket that we didn't install on this kit that we may install in the future, so that may be another follow-up video. we really just did just the spacers and kind of called it a day from there. So we've got a working Jeep ready to go right now. The mud terrains on here just look awesome with the 2.5-inch lift. But I told you guys, like, these tires, just as they are, will fit the stock suspension. But I think y'all, from looking at the video, probably say, hey, this is some good stuff. 2.5-inch lift, 213 bucks. So tires and rims, $2,000. Lift, $213. So you guys can see the end results here. Definitely worth it, I think, if you've got a Jeep. We took this thing from ho-hum to ready to hit the trails, which I think is awesome. So in the future, who knows? Maybe we'll have some other videos on this Jeep. I'm hoping Trent's ready to do some other upgrades and get these things going. It'll be pretty cool. So until next time, thanks for watching.